Hi, Armoured Pants here, and I have another video for you in the French line. This is the Tier 4, the B1, and we have a complete guide for you. As always, we will look at the tech spec and blitzhanger.com, which is a fantastic asset, and I would suggest if you're not using it, you should use it because it is a brilliant asset for all blitzers. All things tanks and wonderful. Now, let's have a look at the B1 heavy tank, which is the Tier 4 in the French line. Should you decide to go that route rather than the SOW 40, the tank destroyer. Now this is a typical heavy tank with lots of heavy tank attributes, great armor, etc. And if you haven't already, please do watch the heavy tank guide I have on channel. That will give you lots of tips and hints and useful information in playing heavy tanks. Now this tank has a really interesting armor profile, which we're going to look at in a second. It has the standard 47mm gun, which we've had all the way up from the AMX 38 through to the D2, and now it's on the B1. Now, while it was a nice gun in lower tiers, you will find in Tier 4 that it lacks penetration, and you will need to load up a hell of a lot of APC ore, and I'm going to explain why in a few minutes, and you're also going to see why in the game that we're going to look at in the gameplay, which is going to exemplify a lot of the aspects of this tank. Now this tank has 13 degrees of gun depression, which is very good because it has a very strong turret, and therefore you can pop your nose over hills and fire down into the enemy. So this is a very interesting feature of this tank. It is not so quick. It does 30 kilometers in a forward in a straight line going forward, and it does 10 going backwards. However, it traverses really well, especially when you move to tracks, and you'll see that in the game too. Now, as we said, it has a lovely armor profile. You're able to get really acute angles. If you look at the top left hand corner, look at the angles we're creating there, you'll see you can create some really good angles. And the armor is really troll, and many guns in Tier 3 and Tier 4 will not be able to pen you, and you will even bounce shots from the big guns like the 75mm and the Panzer 4D, etc. Angle the armor up to get max effect, as you see here. Look at those red numbers in the top left. Now the tank is vulnerable on the sides and back, but if you angle the sides, you will bounce shots as well. Again, if you wiggle around, if you wriggle your butt around, you will also create angles that will bounce some shots, as you can see there. 132, 140mm of effective armor. Adding in the modules, we see that they are exposed. They're exposed on the sides, but also on the front and back. So therefore, carry 2 repair kits. Resist the temptation to have the engine accelerator because the tank is relatively slow. You will need those repair kits, especially if you get into a brawl. So carry the extra repair kit so that you can fix those exposed tracks should you need to. Now again, looking at this armor, taking off the external modules, look at those effective armor numbers. You will bounce shots all day long on this. And if you look here at this firing position, you will see it's almost impenetrable. And if you're firing at that with a 40mm gun or something like that, 30, 35, 50mm gun, you will bounce a lot of shots. And as I said, even with the 75mm gun, like in the Panzer 4D or a DW2, you will bounce shots. Now, looking at it front on, we can see if it's top tier, it can be a bit of a bully boy. In terms of tactics, this tank is good frontline. It's good long range sniping if you use supercharge and muzzle velocity, which of course I suggest you do. It's very good in a 1v1 brawl, which you will see in the game as well. However, this tank will suffer when up tiered. Effectively, this is 1930s technology. You stick this in the ring with 1940s technology like a KV-1 or a Panzer 4, you will get smashed. You're doing 50 damage points per shot. Now you do have a relatively good reload of just over 3 seconds, but you are going to get smashed by those bigger tanks. And even, as I said, with this 3.59 second reload, which goes down to just over 3 seconds, when you drop adrenaline, you're going to suffer. You will really come a cropper against KV-1 or something like that. So it does suffer when up tiered. If you are up tiered, the best thing you can do really is play a support role. However, in this game here, I'm top tier, I'm tier 4, so I decide to go to the left and to push on to support my mediums and light tanks, which are pushing along the left hand, along the rail, and along the seafront. Now, in this game, you'll see all the good aspects of this tank, and you also see some of the bad aspects. I'll point out at the start, this is a mastery game in this tank, but it is a draw, it is not a win. And there's a very simple reason for this draw, and I will explain to you now in a second what that is. And actually, no, I won't explain to you. Actually, I'll let you see it as it unfurls and what happens. Now, I'm firing in here from distance. It's difficult to pen the armour on the front of tanks at this distance, even with this good muzzle velocity, because the low caliber of the gun. So as I said, this gun suffers a bit now that it's on a tier 4 tank. If you're side on, though, it will pen, as you see there. And you know, you can long range snipe with it, but it does have a short barrel, therefore there's less rifling on the shells as they leave the muzzle, and therefore they are less accurate over long distances. And even though they have the muzzle velocity, they don't often pen. Now there's a brawl coming up here, and watch how I traverse using the tracks to keep the heavy armour on my tank facing the enemy. So I back off here. Now watch the track movements. I'm reversing and traversing using the reverse to keep the front of my tank facing this this Panzer IV-D. He has the big gun on that, he's got the 75mm, but even he is struggling for shots. He is struggling, he's looking for a shot. Now I'm in a 2v1 situation, but I clear him. And let's just have a look at this brawl again. So pay attention to the track movements in particular, as I use the fast traverse on this tank, using the tracks to keep the front of my tank facing onto his big gun. You see I also bounce another shot coming in from the left there, 120 bounce. I bounce another shot. Now I'm pushing onto him. I'm pushing on and creating these moving side scraping angles. Not giving him anything. I give a bit of a ram as well because the front of my tank is heavily armoured. Push him. His own tank comes in from there, moves his gun off target. Cheers, mate. With friends like that, who needs enemies? Put another round into him. I take the bounce again. You see, I'm bouncing that 75mm gun, no problem, because I'm keeping the front of my tank and creating those angles with it. Now it's back to a 1v1. And if a friend comes to help here, I bounce another shot, and then I am onto another brawl here with this guy, and we just see here what I do, angling. He has only the front of my tank now. He's got like really acute angle, shot bounces. Now I'm back onto the front from bam, shot into him, and now I have shots into the side of him, which is really vulnerable. And there we go. And this is how to use the traverse on this tank to keep yourself out of trouble, to bounce shots, and to do lots of damage on the enemy. He has decided he's had enough. He decides he's going to try to get away, which is not a good idea when you've got a fast firing gun like mine. I bounce another shot there. And now we are going to clear this guy. Bam, cleared. Now, here is the problem with this tank. And it's a problem which is particularly exasperated since update 5.5. Why? Well, since update 5.5, the standard tank in the British line at tier 4 is the Matilda. The Matilda has been buffed to make it faster, and it still has that troll armour. You need APCR rounds to pen a Matilda on this, unless you hit a very, very small sweet spot in the back of the tank. Now in this game we have 2 Matildas. That means I need an awful lot of AP rounds to pen these guys, and you can see the problems I'm having here. Now what's going to happen in this game, and why we draw this game, is because it takes me so long to kill these 2 Matildas that I don't have time to clear the M7, this guy coming up here on the right who runs off. And this is a major drawback on this tank. I actually run out of APCR rounds. I had quite a few loaded up, but I actually run out of them. And then I'm trying to pen the Matilda with normal AP rounds. And unfortunately, there's only one spot on the Matilda, this spot here, that I can pen with normal AP rounds. And then not even all the time. And that's what, so I'm trying to get into that position when I'm on a 1v1 brawl with Matilda. It costs me a huge amount of time. It costs me a lot of damage because he's putting shots in on me. He's a better armor profile than me. And that's what cost me the time in trying to get to the M7. I don't have time to clear him. I also have really no help from my teammates, which also doesn't help. Now I've cleared him using AP rounds because I wanted to save the APCR rounds because I knew I was going to have to face the other Matilda. And I had the shots on the sweet spot of the Matilda at the back. But when I get into the brawl with the Matilda, which you're going to see now in a second, I have to use AP rounds because he's front onto me and to the sides. So I have to use APCR rounds, and I actually run out of APCR rounds then, and that what caused the problem. So what does all this mean, Armoured? Well, I think it means you need to have as much APCR loaded up as you can. Certainly more than I have in this game. And this is something that I hadn't really realised until I started playing this a little bit for the review. And that is that the Matilda is so prevalent now that you can easily get 2 of them in a game, and sometimes even more. Plus you get M7s now that have this really good armour profile. And you sometimes need APCR to pen down with this low caliber gun too. And you can see what I mean here. I'm front onto this Matilda. Even with the APCR rounds, there's only one spot I can pen him front on. I'm doing my best to pen that. I pen him there. Now I'm coming around. You see, even with the APCR round, it bounces. I'm trying to pen him at the side here with AP rounds. Won't go through. So now I am trying to pen him again. I'm trying to keep his gun away from me, doing my best. I'm trying to get to that sweet spot at the back, drop the adrenaline, but he's moved. Now I try to pen him again on the side, nothing doing. I switch back to my last few APCR rounds because I need to clear this guy. He's also damaging me because the Matilda has a rapid firing good gun. Trying to create some angles to bounce some shots. Succeeding a bit, bouncing some shots from him, penning him, but I'm down now to my last APCR round, which goes through, and now I'm down to AP, and this is the problem. Even though he's only 74, he should be 2 shots from me. I have to get right round the back of him. And you see, even then on that sweet spot at the back, it's still bouncing on me. I can't get through. He's damaging me all the time as I'm trying to get through. Push back onto him here, present him with the difficult angle to pen. He's down to a 1 shot for me now. Can I clear him? I clear him eventually. As you see, this M7 was absolutely useless in trying to help me. I'm down now to 2 shot for, or maybe even a 1 shot actually for that M7. I can't afford to go out and look for him. I need the M7 to spot him for me. But we're down on time. We've only got 8 seconds. I get 1 shot into him here, pen him, but I needed another few seconds and I just ran out. So a mastery badge for me, 1.7k damage, 4 kills. You can see when we look at the team scores, I pretty much fought that battle on my own, little or no help from my teammates. I did 1.2k more damage than the next guy. Gave the M7 a worthy opponent because he got a good draw out of a game that they looked likely to lose. And there you see the strengths of that tank in terms of its brawling skills, its rapid firing gun, its ability to traverse quickly, to put its armour to the front, to create those difficult angles and to get those bounces. You saw the drawback of the low caliber gun, so you really do need to load up with as much APCR as possible, especially now since 5.5 when you're going to be facing more Matildas than you've ever faced before. So, quick recap. This is a solid tier 4 tank, but it does struggle when it's up tiered. I did manage to kill a KV1 in mine once, but you know, that was an unusual situation. It has a poor gun. It's accurate, reliable, but weak pen. Use supercharge and refined gun, or else you won't pen anything, especially over distance. You need APCR and lots of it, as you saw in that game. And as I said, the dynamics since 5.5 mean you're going to be coming up against a lot of Matildas. Matilda, M7, DW2, the Panzer B2 collectible tank and the B1 are all tanks you'll need APCR to pen, especially front on. And the APCR does lower damage, but because you've got a good rate of fire, it does compensate for that somewhat. And the delta on the low rolls is not so big. The tank is slow, 30 kilometers per hour, but it has great traverse, as you saw. And the armour is great. And if you angle and pivot, you will get significant bounces, as you saw in the brawl in that game. And even against the Matilda, which is an amazing brawler, I was able to come out on top. And as I said, would have probably won the game if I'd had more APCR rounds, but unfortunately I did not. So load up on as much APCR as you can afford, because with that low caliber gun you are going to need it. Now the BDR is next in line. This is a very good solid tier 5 heavy tank, but take your time getting there. The jump from tier 4 to tier 5 is perhaps the biggest jump in the game, because when you move into tier 5 and you will eventually be up tiered, there are tanks in tier 6 that will kill you with one shot. So not much room for error there. So take your time moving up. Okay, cheers Mush, thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed it. Pants off.